think we're live or we're close. One of the two. All right. Let's see. Oh, there it is. Perfect. Hi. Welcome back to Art During the Quarantine. I'm Meg. I'm here live in Madrid, Spain. Sorry, I'm just a couple minutes late. Got my hair braided by a pal, so gotta get ready. We are going to be painting monochrome mountains today, which I'm really excited about because monochrome art pieces are very, very striking because the attention to detail really gets to be played up. So we are going to do a little bit of that today. Grab out paintbrushes, everything for watercolor, and a blank piece of paper, and we'll get started. Let me pray for us, and we'll get going. God, thanks for these people. Thanks for the gift to get to paint. Thank you for weekends that give us rest and rejuvenate us for the tasks that you give us and the work that you give us, Lord. I pray a blessing over each and every one of them, and that I pray that you just anoint this time. It is in Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Okay, well, let's get going. What we're going to do today, we're going to start off by taping off our paper in a way that's going to help us sort of organize where our drawing is going to be. So grab out a little bit of tape. I recommend sticking it on your clothes or a sweater or something so that you can, it doesn't take paper off of your paper when you remove it at the very end. But I'm going to stick one piece just on the very top of my paper, about 1.5 inches to 1 inch from the border. I'm going to go for a rectangular sort of frame for my piece. So whatever works for you, you can totally pick, but I'll just let you know what I'm doing. I'm going to grab another piece here. A good thing to just make note of is being sure that each of the edges is just pressed down really well, because we don't want watercolor to leak underneath either of those. So I just kind of go over it again with my fingers, make sure we're all set. I'm going to create 2 more pieces. Not create, I'm just going to rip them off. And I'm going to tee them with each of those, kind of bringing in the frame of reference just sort of towards the center of my paper. And let's see here. That'll be pretty much all we need to do to get this paper ready to go, besides weighing the paper down with a little bit of water. Okay, so here's what mine looks like. There's that. Awesome. Great. Okay, grab a paintbrush. I'm grabbing this one with a rounded top. And I have a jar of water here. Essentially what I'm going to do is just get my paper. I'm going to get my paper wet on the bottom 2/3, leaving this at the top to be just nice, open, and kind of actually clean paper at the very end. So we'll keep it clean. So I'm just going to dip my brush in water, sort of work it into the paper a little bit. My paper isn't watercolor paper, so it's going to wrinkle, but that's okay. It'll dry, and you can put a book on top of it later and straighten everything all out. But I just like to get the paper wet a little bit. It makes it so that when the pigment is introduced, it's kind of like having a soft place to land. So it's a nice way to do it. Okay, so I've got this top, maybe generous 2/3 of my paper soaked with water. You finish up a couple last strokes there. I was sure just to get in the corners, make sure everything is really fully coated. So quick art lesson. Here's where the art theory comes back. So monochrome is essentially when you have a piece of artwork that only is one color, and all of the different values within that one color are represented in that piece. So there's no, for example, like a black and white photograph. You have all different shades from white to dark black. All in that same picture. Is there any other color from the rainbow introduced? No. So that's a good example of a monochrome piece. So that is what we're going to do today with these mountains. We are going to pick a color and go monochrome, which is really fun. And the nice thing about watercolors is layering them is it comes very naturally to that material. So hopefully you'll have as much fun as I do. I have been eyeing the blues today. So I think what I'm going to do, I'll show you my palette. I think I'm going to hang out with this Prussian blue at the top, and maybe we'll go down and water down with a little bit of white. We'll see kind of what makes sense. So that's what I'm choosing. You pick a color that's good for you. We're going to start with the lightest version of that tone. So if you have like a lid on a jar, what I'd like you to do now is just grab a little bit of water on your paintbrush. I'm going to grab a thicker one, and I'm just going to pool it sort of at the bottom in this jar. And this is going to be useful for for creating those different values of that one color that we have. So what's awesome is that we can actually use this as sort of our makeshift paint palette while keeping our palette clean over here with the true blue that we have, or red or green. So I'm going to put this jar right next to my page. Let me show you what I'm doing. I'm going to take my brush. I'm going to go back to my watercolor palette. I am going to just grab a little bit of this pigment. Mine are like artist watercolors, I guess. So the pigment's super dense, so you really don't need a ton. I'm going to take this. I'm going to bring it to this palette, and I'm just going to slowly introduce this color. Notice how dark. It really did not take much paint, so I'm actually going to add a little bit more water because that's even too dark for what I need. So we'll dilute it just a little bit like that. Okay. That looks good. So I'm going to get my brush wet with this color, and on my page, I am going to, my landscape is going to be portrait. So I'll be working sideways with you today. I am going to use this blue, and I'm slowly just going to edge some just really soft mountains in the background with this, just a line across the page. I'm kind of letting my brush wander, and then I'm going to take these tones and drag them down towards the very base of, this is going to be the bottom of my watercolor painting. So going back, grabbing a little bit more pigment, notice that it is kind of just being absorbed softly into the water because my page is already wet. So woohoo, love that. And let's see. We're just going to fill this in. If it's sunny where you are, that's awesome because your page will dry. I was hoping to catch some sunshine here, but the sun just tucked away behind the clouds. So I might have to blow on it a little bit, or we'll just get to chat in between the layers. Who knows? So this is what I have so far. It's even lighter in what I'm seeing on my computer, but essentially I've just kind of drawn these ghosty, just gentle hills in the background. And we're going to go back and we're going to do a couple more layers on top. But again, we're just going to keep pulling this pigment towards the very bottom, being sure that we get in all the corners. I'm trying to keep my lines kind of all going down the page. Watercolors tend to blend together, so you don't see a lot of individual brush strokes, but if you do, I want them to all be consistent. So just for consistency's sake, we'll maintain it just like this, like that. Perfect. This is where that tape is truly a friend because it's taken all the hits for us. So I'm going to wave my paper around in the air for just a minute. And hopefully you can blow on yours. I've used a hairdryer before, but it's really loud. So we'll see. We'll see if we can sort of, dry this paper off just a little bit. I hope you're having a good day and you're ready for the weekend. Today was a pretty mellow day of school. We had some teachers' Zoom meetings and all that good stuff. But besides that, yeah, it just was gorgeous. The sun peeked out today. So nothing like a little dose of hope of being able to be outside in the real world someday soon. So remaining optimistic. Okay, so on my page, I've got this top ridge that is actually almost totally dry, which is great. While I kind of finish this explanation for what we're going to do next, hopefully I'll have a little bit more of an area I can paint in. But essentially what we're going to be doing for this monochrome mountain painting essentially is layering this same pigment and then actually deepening it a little bit and layering mountains on top of each other, kind of scattering down the page. The awesome thing about this is that the mountains sort of start to talk to each other as the tone differences are only so slight. But when you stack watercolor, obviously the intensity grows. So you can really have just some really cool moments in between your mountains. So this, I've drawn the very, very top of my mountain, and we're going to do another layer right beneath it. I'm going to try just layering the pigments on top. If it's not dark enough, you can either go back to your watercolor palette and just add a little bit more pigment in, or you can add, let's see, what else could you do? I guess you could add a little bit of black if you wanted to, but I would stick with the true color for now, unless you're getting desperate and you're already sick of that color. Okay, so here we are. I'm going to turn my page. Let's turn the camera. Let's get going. Okay, cool. So here we are. We're going back into this jar that I have, or this lid. I'm just going to get my brush wet again. I can kind of feel with my finger where it's still a little bit wet. Oh, it's getting close. It's super close. Okay, the last thing about this is that if your paper is wet where you're trying to layer, do wait, because if you don't, these colors will start to kind of like fuzz together, and that really ruins like the illusion of those mountains, because if any of you lived around mountains, you know that it's really beautiful to see just kind of the gradient in the distance. And so that's kind of that same effect that we're trying to capture. So here we go. Let's hope it's ready. Okay. So again, I've got enough paint on my brush. I'm going to create just a couple more ghosty mountains here. Again, add some different lines if you want to. I try to always kind of like scatter my brush at the very top so that, again, I can kind of create like the illusion of maybe these mountains are actually real, even though I'm kind of just envisioning them now. Okay, continue by bringing this water all the way down, the paint all the way down your page, because again, we're stacking these watercolors. Great. Okay, again, just a gentle reminder about brush strokes and just kind of maintaining that same direction. I'm going to come back up here and I'm just going to touch up a couple of these lines that have frayed a bit and kind of inch them up just a little bit. So, and then I'll show my paper up close so you can kind of see what we're working with here. Great. Oh, this is really fun. I think I like it so far. All right, so let me show you what I have. Again, you can see already by stacking just those 2 layers, I didn't even deepen my pigment at all. And I already have a variety, quite a variance between those top 2. So woohoo, pat on the back, artist style. That is some good looking stuff. I'm gonna wave my paper around like a frantic, I don't even know, maybe chicken running around or something like that. And we can chat about something else. Question of the day. Oh, let's see. I think yesterday's was like something about, would you rather hold like a baby jaguar or baby tiger? But today, I think my question would be, if you had to be a house plant, what would you be? That's good. I should probably have my answer for the question ready before I pitch it. But let's see. I think I would probably be a spider plant. I think they're just the coolest plants that like grow and like propagate themselves on their own. I think that's so cool. God has some really amazing ideas. Also, they're just gorgeous. I love all like the variety of green that they have in their leaves. So that's probably the one I would choose. Let's see, we've got a little while yet. I don't know what one you're choosing. Let's see. Actually, I have a very funny story about houseplants. So there was this one time I started to kind of like care for some of the plants in our house growing up. And I told my mom one day, I was like, yeah, like I was watering the plants in the living room. And she was like, what plants, Megan? Like, I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about. And I was like, yeah, you know, like the pot next to the piano. I was like watering that. And she looked at me and she was like, Megan, that's fake. And I've been watering a fake plant for like months. I consider myself a pretty good plant mom, but man, I was like, I'm so sorry. There's probably like mold in there or something. I don't even know. Okay, so we've got 2 layers down. Let's grab one more layer, dip that brush in that same jar that you've had, and just kind of test it out with your finger. We're getting close. I'm going to go for it. Maybe, hopefully it will pay off. So, oh, maybe not. We'll see. Actually, it does need a minute. Okay, it needs a minute. Great. So I'm going to inch this over. This one might be a little bit more of a ghosty mountain range here that's overlapping. Oh, it's good over on this side though. Okay, yep. Remember to bring all these pigments, continuing to drag them down towards the bottom of the page. And then also just a reminder to kind of vary the lines that you choose on the very, very top of your page, because we want to make sure these are, oh, sunshine, love that. We're giving them variety. Sometimes when we stagger our brushes, we create the illusion of like actual kind of like ripples in the mountains, which is exactly what we want to do. So perfect. Oh, this is going to dry my page real quick. This is great. Thank you, Jesus. He knows what I need before I even ask him. Man, so good. Okay. So I'm going to touch up this very top over here. And I'm going to let this sit in the sun while we chat. Okay. Looks good. Hi, Laura. It's good to see you. So fun. It's been really cool trying some of these videos recently because I've shared them with a couple other friends who are either teaching here in Madrid or have friends in Madrid, and it's been really cool. I got a message from one of my teacher pals yesterday, and she was saying that one of her students sent her artwork that he had done in my class. I was like, it just makes my day. So good. I miss getting to like check out all my students' artwork all the time. We always had the best conversations. They're very, very creative. Okay, so I've got that second range of mountains really drawn in there. Again, I dragged all these pigments down the page. And by now, if your paper isn't wet, I would just make sure you get enough, you are having enough paint on there because mine is pretty soaked, which is good. It's good for stacking, a little tricky for when we're trying to get this middle section of the paper to really set so that we can paint on top of it again. So I'm gonna let this bake in the sun for just a hot second. And the sun's doing its thing, so I don't have to work that hard, which is always nice when the environment cooperates with our efforts. Awesome. So I hope wherever you are, you're able to at least see outside and be outside. Dang, I feel like I'm getting like this like halo of light just flying over my face here, but that's okay. We'll keep painting on. Beautiful. So here's what we've got. Oh, awesome. Laura said some of her friends and kids are checking out. I love that. That's so good. Sweet. Yes, art is a great way to kind of decompress, especially when other parts of our lives tend to be limited in this season. It's good to do something else creative and keep our minds alert and alive. Alive, alert, awake, and enthusiastic. I don't know where that's from. Okay, we're super close. Oh man, I could just let this totally finish. Great. So depending on what color you have, like if you chose yellow, for example, for this monochrome project, your page is going to look very, very, very different from mine. Yellow stacks a little bit differently, and typically, like in just sort of like a regular store pack of watercolors, yellow is pretty diluted, like the pigment is. So you're going to have to work a little bit harder, but you can do it. This blue I have is pretty dense, so I don't have to worry too much about that. But if you find yourself needing to go back and even do another layer before you move on to the next set of mountains, it's super typical. So don't sweat it. Okay, so this is looking really good. I'm going to go on to layer number 4. Here we go. Again, go back to your paint that you mixed up. Now is when I'm actually going to build the intensity. I'm just going to go back to my blue, mix in just a little bit more water, and we'll keep it going. Okay. So, you're in the shadow now. Can you see anything? Let's see if I can pivot. Let's see. What about that? Is that better? Great. Or I might just have to hold it up and that would be fine too. Okay, here's my page. I'm going to take my brush with paint and I'm going to do some lines that really contrast with the lines ahead of them. Again, just kind of sliding across the page. Continuing again to pull these pigments down like that. Great. This is like the patience project for sure. You definitely grow and like just waiting for materials to cure and be ready for more action, that's for sure. Okay, so I've got my 4th tier of mountains. It's so bright. I hope you can still see. And if you have the chance to move near your window where the sun can help you out, that is definitely what I would recommend. I'm going to go in here and just touch up a couple of these lines. Great. Okay. Let the sun do its thing. So good. So I'm curious how you guys have been spending your time during quarantine, working, still in school. Yeah. Send it in the comments, text me, let me know how you're doing. Hopefully you're doing okay. Let's see. I've been doing a lot of baking still. Nothing crazy today, but maybe something later this weekend. While this is waiting, I thought I would show you what we finished yesterday. I thought was so fun. These turned out really, really great. So we drew with tape and then did sort of like watercolor moments inside each of these little pockets, which was super, super fun. So if you have time this weekend and you're like, oh, watercolors are my life, this would be a great project to kind of check out. I thought the colors turned out even better than expected. So take a look and check it out. I'm going to wait just one more minute on this page. Let's see. What other stories can I tell you from the day or from the week? Man, it's hard in quarantine when you're like not doing a ton of like crazy stuff out of the blue. I wrote some music today, got a little bit written, which is good, or at least some ideas down. Need to kind of chip away at some of those projects. Let's see. Going into the weekend, ready for some sleep. A little bit of snoozing, maybe some movies or something. We'll see what people are up for. Yeah, this is crazy. Okay, this is looking almost set. I probably have a minute here. So good. So we're going to do 5 layers. So we're on to almost our last layer here, which is great. For this last layer, it's going to be closest to the viewer. We can intensify the pigment just even a little bit more. Typically, the way that works in drawings is that things that are farther away from us tend to be lighter, and our brain associates lighter pigments with like distance. So when we have pigments that are deeper, our brain tends to associate those as being super close to us. So as artists, we use that to our advantage because we can help kind of train our viewers for how to interact with our artwork based on the kind of the level and we would call it value of different pigments in relationship to each other in an art piece, for example. So yeah, it's a really great way to do it. And you're doing it right now. So you're becoming one of those artists that does that. So pat yourself on the back or something. Okay, so here's our page. Here's our mountains. Looking so dreamy, makes me want to go there. Let's get our 5th layer down, and then you can let this just bake in the sun. We'll put a little sunshine or like moon or something in ours to kind of wrap up the page. But I'm going to go back again. I'm going to dip my brush back in the original color I'm working with. I'm going to get this color super deep and rich to kind of help our viewers say, oh, hell yeah, like that's where it goes. It's closest to me, right? Okay, so here we are. Again, I'm just going to start from this side of the paper, and we're going to work all the way to that side. Like this. And again, let this pigment drip down. And you could repeat this process all the way down to the very bottom of the page. I've seen some people do that. I've seen people do, all sorts of stuff. But really, whatever you're up for. I think 5 layers is a really great place to start. Let's see. My brush is kind of fraying. It has a little attitude today. I don't know how your paintbrush is doing, but mine's like, are you sure? Okay. Great. So I've got that last layer drawn in there. You can probably see it's quite intense compared to the other ones. But again, we're maintaining that illusion of sort of lighter is in the distance, and then the ones that are darker are closer to us. Probably, I might have to come back to this a lot later and I kind of want to add 1 or 2 more. My paper right now is a little bit too wet, but let me show you where I would add maybe like a little sunshine in the top. This is a trick I do all of the time, and I love it because it's like super easy, and people are always like, how did you do that? So I'm going to, again, grab that same paint that we had before, and I'm going to take actually the back of my paintbrush. I'm going to dip it in the watercolor, and then I'm going to pick a point where there's interest. I see like this little dip in the mountains that I have, and that kind of says like, oh, maybe a little sun would fit so perfect in there. So dip that in there. I'm going to turn it towards me so I can put it where I want to. And then basically what I'm going to do is I took the top of my brush and I just made the back of my brush, and I just made like a little sphere. Sometimes it's helpful to use like an object that's not as mobile as the top of a paintbrush to kind of get that dot in there. You could make it a little bit bigger if you wanted to. And it has a certain level of pigment right now, but later I might come back and add a little bit more.
But that sort of helps, makes your scene just a little bit more scenic. Of course, you could add birds or something else, or if you wanted to, you could do some clouds, whatever is up to you. But that's what we've got for now. So you just did it. You just did monochrome mountains. Way to go. Here's our final product, looking just beautiful. I love having some of these ghosty mountains in the background, just kind of, today it feels like they're mocking me, but on a normal day, they would just be saying, come visit. So that's what we have today. Thank you so much for joining me. It's been a gift to do some art with you. Let me pray and bless you as you go into the weekend, and we'll get moving. Lord, thanks for these people. I pray that you would just go before them into all that this weekend holds, give them the strength and wisdom as they navigate it all. I pray that you would hold our hearts in this season, giving us patience with your purposes and plans. And God, we just want to tell you that we love you and that we just think you are so creative and amazing. Thanks for your heart, and thank you that you share it with us. It is in Jesus' name that I pray. Amen. Sweet. Thanks for joining me. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. Take care. Bye-bye.